Hello guys, my name is Keyshawn, and in today's video we are gonna just go ahead and do a quick lesson review on lesson 4.2.14, a part of CompTIA's A plus 1201 Core 1. Uh, Big old title. I know it's hard for me to say. I always mess it up. But A plus is Core 1 1201 certification. One of the lesson reviews in the lesson I just finished. So I'm probably not going to read out the entire question or all the answers, but for question one, while running a graphics editing program on your Windows workstation, a screen suddenly pops up with an error message warning. You note the error message, but the only way to continue working is to reboot your system. What is this type of error screen called? I'm going to go with a blue screen of death. Let's go check the answer. And here's the explanation. So I'm not going to read the entire explanation, but if you want to read it, go ahead, pause the video. Every time a user attempts to save a file, the computer shows an error that reads, "Cannot read from the source disk." What kind of issue does this indicate? Power issue, drive issue, RAID failure, or post issue? Well, I think we can rule out post issue because post is whenever the computer is booting, and if we're already trying to save files, that means we booted. RAID failure. Every time a user attempts to save a file, the computer shows error that reads, "Cannot read from the source disk." So cannot access that disk. So it could be a RAID failure. Drive issue. It's probably more a drive issue if I were to assume. Power issue. So we can rule out A and D. It's gonna be one of these two. I'm gonna go with drive issue, but it could be a RAID failure. If obviously the drives failed or whatever. Cool, that's correct. And then 3, 2, 1 for the explanation. You are a technician tasked with designing a desktop computer you are a technician tasked with diagnosing a desktop computer that has been reported to frequently freeze and experience slow file access times. Upon investigation, you notice that the hard disk drive HDD is making unusual clicking noises. Yeah, that's failing. What is the most appropriate action to take to address the drive's reliability and performance issues? Update the computer's BIOS UEFI settings to ensure proper drive configuration? No. Replace the HDD with a new one and restore data from the latest backup? Probably the best answer. Defragment the HDD to improve data access speed and performance? No. Run a full system antivirus scan to check for malware affecting the HDD? No. Since the drive, specifically the hard drive, or I guess I should say, yeah, the hard drive, has the unusual clicking noises. That means forgot what it's actually called, but like the read write, I guess handle thing in the hard drive, it's on its last leg. So in this instance, we'd want to replace the hard drive. Which of the following is a common Which of the following is a common symptom of a failing hard drive HDD that affects its reliability and performance? The computer experiences frequent freezing and slow file access times. Probably. The computer fails to detect any bootable devices during the boot sequence. Well, that's probably the better answer. The computer displays a blue screen of death during startup. This could be anything relating to hardware or software. The computer's power supply unit PSU fails to provide stable power to the motherboard. That doesn't relate to a failing hard drive. So I think we can rule out C and D. Which of the following is a common symptom of a failing hard drive that affects its reliability and performance? Well, if the computer fails to detect any bootable drives during the boot sequence, that means it's not failing. That means it failed. So I think I'm going to go with A. Cool. A technician is troubleshooting a failed redundant array of independent disk RAID configuration and is unable to access the RAID configuration utility. What does this indicate? So if you can't access the RAID config utility, I think that means the boot process failed. All right, so that means the controller failed. Let's go ahead and review the explanation. If the technician cannot access the RAID config utility, this indicates that the controller itself is likely to have failed. However, the data on the volume should be recoverable. Most desktop level RAID solutions can tolerate the loss of only one disk, so the technician should replace it as soon as possible. If the RAID failure affects the boot process, so that's what I selected, the technician can use the RAID config utility to verify its status. Okay. If a volume is not available, either multiple disks more than the tolerated number of disks have failed, or the controller has failed. Okay, so pretty much stating that if the boot process failed, the RAID or the technician can use the config utility to verify the status. I'm assuming verify the status, meaning you can verify which drives are failing or have failed. But if you're unable to access the RAID config utility entirely, then that means the controller has failed. You have just installed an SSD in your older Windows workstation. However, after you start Windows, you do not see the SSD drive listed in Windows Explorer. What should you do first? Replace the power supply? I don't think so. Configure the jumpers on the SSD drive. I don't know what they mean by jumpers. Use the voltage switch on the power supply to switch from 110 to 220. No, I don't think it has anything to do with the power supply. Make sure the power connectors on the SSD drive are plugged in all the way. I think that's the best answer. When troubleshooting boot sector issues, which of the following steps is essential to ensure the system can successfully boot from the correct drive? I'll go with D here. I think I'm gonna go with B here. I don't exactly remember what NTFS file system. Okay, so I think based off of that, I think B would be the best answer. Okay. I think I'm gonna go with B here. I'm not even gonna read the rest. Whenever you hear audible beeps, that means you're having post errors. When troubleshooting boot issues, which of the following steps should you take if a fixed disk is not detected during the boot process? Place the motherboard immediately, check if the operating system is up to date, verify that the drive is powered, and check for secure power connections, reinstall the system firmware. So this one is C. You're a technician tasked with resolving a boot issue on a client's computer. The system fails to boot and displays an error message indicating no bootable device found. Upon inspection, you notice that the system has multiple drives installed. Which of the following actions should you take first to resolve the boot sector issue? Place the data cables connecting the drives to the board, reinstall the operating system on the primary drive, run a full diagnostic test on all the installed drives to check for hardware failures, check the UEFI BIOS settings to ensure the correct boot order is selected. The system fails to boot and displays an error message indicating no bootable device found. If no bootable device is found, we can rule out D. Run a full diagnostic test on all installed drives to check for hardware failures. Not yet. Reinstall the operating system on the primary drive. I mean, we don't know. Well, according to this, there is no operating system, so I think I'm going to go with A. No, I'm going to go with B. Okay, let's take a look. Explanation. Ensuring the UEFI BIOS is configured to boot from the correct drives can resolve the no bootable device found error if the system is trying to boot from a non-bootable drive. Which makes sense. The reason I went with B is because D is obviously correct. I'm assuming that all the drives are properly plugged in and they're listed there. If they're listed in the BIOS and there's no bootable device found, that, at least to my assumption, that means there's no operating system on the drives. Now, obviously, in this example, we don't know if there's an operating system on the drives, and we don't know what actually appeared in the boot order. We don't know if the drives are actually listed there. So that is my mistake. You should always check the BIOS settings to ensure the correct boot order is set, and make sure that the drives, if you have 4 drives in the system, make sure there's 4 drives that are being recognized. So this is pretty much what I just explained, but yeah, this is pretty much the same thing. So we would want to check the boot order to ensure that USB drives are not taking priority over our actual boot drive. If nothing is lighting up on the board, that means that the power supply isn't working. But it also could mean that the port that you plug it into is not working, or the wire outlet that you plug the power supply into is not working. So let's take a look. When troubleshooting a computer that won't start due to a power issue, which of the following steps should you take first to determine if the problem is related to PSU? Immediately I'm gonna do B. Check if the LEDs on the front panel are lit and if you can. Cool. Alrighty, guys. Well, that's gonna be the end of the video. This was 4.2.14 lesson review, a part of CompTIA's A+ 1201 Core 1 module. If you have any questions or if you want to see more of these like quiz videos, just leave comments down below and definitely make some more videos on the quizzes. So thank you guys for watching and have a good day.